So we've got to talk about some major news, right, that we're just now getting in terms of the gas prices in this country being the lowest they've been in over 4.5 years. You know, basically since Uncle Trump was in office the last time. We also got to dive into, this whole doom and gloom narrative that Democrats and some Republican rhinos continue to try to push, that, Trump is sinking, Trump is completely underwater, blah, 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 blah. All right, we're going to disprove that narrative a little bit later on in the clip. But before we get to that, let's get into this wonderful news. Yeah, gas prices, they're in a beautiful place. Make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe if you are new, and let's dive in.
This morning, some states seeing gas prices below $3 for the first time in years. Let's get to CNN's Matt Egan for the good news on this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to finally be here with some good news on the cost of living front. So for the first time in 4.5 years, gas prices are averaging $3 a gallon nationally, according to AAA, down by 7 cents in just the past week. Gas prices were low a year ago as well, but they're even cheaper now. This is encouraging to see because late last month there was a period where gas prices were actually higher this year than last year, but that has reversed again, and now we've just fractions of a penny away from breaking below $3 a gallon. Now, as you mentioned, we've got 20 states across the country where the average is actually less than $2.75 a gallon, including North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas, Iowa, Wisconsin, and Colorado as well. Certainly nice to see this. Why is this happening? Well,
a bunch of red states. What do you know? That's where gas is the cheapest, a bunch of red states. I wonder how that one worked out.
It all comes down, of course, to oil prices, right? Oil prices are about $59 a barrel this morning. If you look back in history, on December 1, 3 years ago, we're looking at $81 a barrel for oil, $67 even last year. So significantly.
We also have to take into account, because as you saw, their gas prices are virtually the same as last year around this time. They're a little bit cheaper by 5 cents, I believe. But you guys also have to take into account, if you guys remember, the Biden administration was releasing from our strategic oil reserves to try to artificially bring down the prices. If you guys remember, I actually talked about that in several videos, and I'm like, bro, do not buy this nonsense. They're strategically doing this they're doing this on purpose, strategically, to try to make it seem as if the economy is coming back, right? To make it seem as if the Biden administration is actually doing something great. In reality, they weren't, right? They were robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? Instead of doing what they needed to do, they were trying to throw out the smoke screen in front of folks, and that's not what's happening right now, right? These strategic reserves aren't being drained completely to try to artificially bring down the price. Absolutely not. But the Biden administration was doing that, so we have to take that into account as well when we compare the prices now versus last year.
Cheaper, and that's because right now supply of oil continues to outpace demand. It's U.S. supply. Production in the U.S. is at all-time highs. It's higher than last year, but only a little bit higher. OPEC is the big story, though, right? Saudi-led OPEC, they are ramping up production substantially this year. They've signaled that they plan to pause those output hikes next year. But for now, look, this is a good story when it comes to the affordability crisis. Gasoline, it's relatively cheap.
All right. Well, good news for now, Matt Egan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
For that. Sarah.
Yeah, so you heard that there from the Communist News Network themselves, having to admit that gas prices are the cheapest they've been in over 4.5 years. How incredible is that? How beautiful is that,
My camper. And
I also want to dive into some other clips, and I don't know why this one's being weird, but I want to dive into some other clips of some folks around the country actually confirming what they were just saying right there. So check it out.
It's day 2 driving my camper and my car from Oklahoma to California with my parents. We're right on the border of Arizona and California, so we wanted to fill up gas before crossing the border. And I just wanted to show you guys what the difference in gas price is going to be.
Here in Topeka, Arizona, it's $2.85 a gallon.
Because we're towing the camper, every hour and a half to 2 hours, we need to fill up the tank. All right, $36.55 for 13 gallons. Truly in the middle of nowhere. It's gonna be $5 a gallon.
Because you ain't getting no more gas for another 80 miles.
They know they have the only infrastructure for miles.
What?
$7.99 a gallon.
Holy shit.
Illegal. It should be illegal. And 4 of their pumps are broken. This was the only place from literally the border until we needed to fill up. The only place in the middle of the desert. So they're absolutely gouging. Look at this. The last person just paid $100 for 12.5 gallons of gas. We forgot to stop pumping. It was supposed to be 5 gallons, but 75 for 9. Welcome to California.
Yeah. Welcome to the blue states, right? In the red states, though, where he filled up the first time, gas was actually cheap. In Arizona, gas wasn't actually $8 a gallon, which is absolutely mind-boggling. $8 a gallon is crazy. But let's jump into some more of these clips. Goodness gracious. Can I rewind that? There we go. $2.45. How amazing is that? How beautiful is that? $2.45 right there. $2.45. Can't complain about that, right? Can't complain about that. And this one is actually pretty shocking. Check it out.
Seriously? Am I in a freaking time machine? $1.99 for gas. That is insane. There she is.
$1.99. How beautiful is that? How beautiful is that? $1.99. Love the sound of it. Love the sound of it. But, you know, if you live in a blue state, you can't expect your gas to be that cheap because, like this brother here in Washington State, well, I'll just let him tell you himself. Check it out.
Thanks to President Donald Trump putting the emphasis back on America First energy policies, gas prices have fallen to new lows, which is why in a lot of states, groceries and other goods are getting less expensive. Not here in Washington. Because of Bob Ferguson, Jay Inslee, and Washington State Democrats, we have the Climate Commitment Act, which has jacked our gas prices through the roof. So while the rest of the country is seeing prices under $3, Washington State is seeing them over $4, and in some places over $5 a gallon, making us the third highest gas prices per gallon in the entire U.S., all because of Democrat policies. Now remember, when gas is more expensive, when energy is more expensive, so is everything that is moved using gasoline, including groceries and goods. If you want to know why prices are higher, thank a local Democrat, because they're the ones responsible for it.
Facts. And that was the whole point, right? When you lower the price of gas, everything else starts to drop with it because everything else has to be moved. How is it moved? Well, it needs fuel. Well, if the fuel is a lot cheaper, well, then the product is a lot cheaper because that cost isn't passed on to the consumer. So, yeah, prices dropping already in. Now, I want to get into a little bit of this doom and gloom narrative that, you know, some Republicans or some rhinos, right? And obviously all Democrats are trying to push that, oh my goodness, Trump's going down. The MAGA is done. MAGA is over. They've lost. We won the elections on November 4th this year. MAGA is cooked. That's a load of crap. Check it out.
Let's go to Steve Kornacki now for an opportunity here to kind of tie everything together. Steve, it's one thing for us to hear from voters on the ground, but then we have to look at the data to see if one or two anecdotal accounts of how voters are feeling actually is applying to everyone. What are the polls telling us right now about where things stand?
Yeah, Ryan, we're looking at numbers in the polls that have moved this fall and really moved, I think, starting with the government shutdown in a way that's concerning for the president and for his party. So take a look right now. This is the average, the real clear average, all the different polls that are out there right now in terms of Trump's approval rating, 43%. Disapproval, you see, is basically 55. Here's the switch, though, from the start of the fall, basically from Labor Day. This is what it looked like. And again, remember, Trump as a president, his numbers have kind of been in a pretty narrow range, historically speaking. And around Labor Day, he was doing, by his own standard, his first and second term, he was doing pretty good. 45-50 here, approve, disapprove. And you can see that now that gap has more than doubled, basically to 12 points in the course of the fall. And it really did accelerate during that shutdown in October. And we certainly saw that reflected, I think, in those results in New Jersey and Virginia. Put this in some historical context here. Again, these are sort of modern presidents at this same point, looking at where their approval rating was. You see, again, we say Trump right now, 43%. This is basically a year out from the midterms for these previous presidents right here. And again, you see that Trump number. It's in basically that range. Remember, in the 2010 midterms, Obama and the Democrats got wiped out. In 2013, very bad midterm for the Democrats. 2018, Trump's first term, very bad midterm. It was a blue wave, bad midterm for the Republicans. The interesting one here is Joe Biden. You see where his number was at this point in his term. The 22 midterms, the Republicans got control of the House, but it wasn't the red wave Republicans were expecting. It actually was Democrats held up better than they thought they would, especially given these numbers. Why? Because in those midterms in 22, Democrats ended up making Trump a big issue. Trump ended up being a liability in some ways for Republicans in that midterm. And that's one of the things Republicans have kind of been hoping might help them in next year's midterms, that the Democratic Party's image has been so low in polling. And that's why I wanted to show you this. These are the two most recent polls we have since the November election about the views of each party. Two polls so far. We'll see how this develops. You see the Republicans, 38 favorable, 39 unfavorable, well over 50 unfavorable in each one of these polls. Now, what we've been seeing for a while is that the Democrats were much more unpopular than the Republicans. But in these two polls, not that big of a gap. Look here, in the Fox News poll, 39-58 for the Republicans, 39-58 for the Democrats. In this Economist YouGov poll, again, not much of a gap. So one of the things Republicans have been talking about is maybe being a bit of a boost for them in the midterms has been that the Democratic numbers had been so low. In the two polls we've seen since the November elections, though, not a huge gap between the parties in these two polls. See if that's the start of a trend over the next year. And we just end with this one, Ryan. This is the generic congressional ballot. Which party do you want to control Congress? It's basically a 5-point advantage for Democrats right now. Now, at this same point in the 2018 cycle, that blue wave midterm, it was twice as high. So the climate is not that sort of 5 alarm, you might say, for the Republicans yet. But to be down 5 points a year out from the midterms with the trend lines we're showing you, that's very concerning for them.
It does also seem that people just don't like any of the political parties on any level right now, Steve, and we'll have to see how that plays itself out in the midterm. Steve Kornacki.
It's going to turn out horrible for Democrats, and here's why. So obviously, you saw the numbers there, and you got to take it with a grain of salt, right? Because it is mainstream media, and these are the same folks. Keep in mind, these are the same folks who were peddling the Iowa poll right before the election, 2 days before the election. Oh my goodness, it's one of the most accurate polls ever. This says Trump's going to lose Iowa. Oh, the same folks who are peddling these polls saying Kamala was going to win Michigan and Kamala was going to pull it out, a close one in Pennsylvania, and all of this other BS, right? These are the same folks. So take these with a grain of salt. But I do think it's interesting that they're reporting on numbers that Trump has, right, currently, that are better than previous presidents. And when you consider the backdrop, right, and the backdrop is mainstream media has peddled Democrat talking points like no other. They've been the Democrats' biggest cheerleaders day in and day out. Day in and day out. We know that. And yet still, Trump has a better approval rating than they had at this point. And let's keep it 100. Typically, the party in power loses in the midterms. This is typically the way things go. So when people, oh my goodness, Trump is sinking, it's a load of crap. It's BS, right? It is BS. One, because that's the typical way things go. So I don't know why well, I do know why they're making a big deal about it. It's because it's Republicans, and that's what mainstream media does. They peddle stuff for the Democrat Party. They're an arm of the Democrat Party. But then also, why aren't they all talking about the fact that he's actually doing better than previous presidents? You know, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And so, relax. Don't believe this nonsense that Republicans are going down. The Republican Party is falling apart. Oh my goodness. Once again, remember, these are the same folks that peddled these BS polls last year before the 24 election, trying to convince us and tell us that Trump was about to lose and all of this extra nonsense. Not true. Not true by a long shot. Okay. So yeah, whenever any of your liberal friends or family members want to try to push that narrative, let them know. Actually, Trump is doing better than previous presidents like Barack Obama and Joe Biden were doing at this point in their presidency as well. And when you consider the fact that Trump's policies haven't even really taken effect yet, you know, which you don't expect them to really take hold until next year. And once that starts to happen, oh my goodness, if this is Trump's low point, Democrats are in trouble. They are in absolute trouble. They're going to get cooked. Absolutely cooked. If you guys haven't buried him yet, right? If you couldn't bury him yet, yeah, it's over with. It's over with coming to midterms. It is absolutely over. And when mainstream media is peddling numbers that show that Trump is actually doing better, you could probably bet they finagled the numbers, but the numbers there was too big of a gap there to really, you know, to do too much. So they just had to make it seem like things were about even. Trump was doing just a little bit better than previous presidents. You know, that should tell you everything you need to know. I'm just saying. Don't believe the nonsense. All right. Stay safe out there. Peace and love. I'm out.